Detective Ethan Collins woke to the soft glow of the early morning sun, filtering through the sheer curtains of his bedroom. The delicate rays painted golden stripes across the walls, a gentle reminder of the new day ahead. He stretched languidly, feeling the comforting warmth of his wife Laura nestled beside him. Her chest rose and fell with the steady rhythm of sleep. Her auburn hair fanned out across the pillow like a fiery halo. Ethan smiled softly, careful not to disturb her as he slipped out of bed. The floorboards creaked lightly under his weight, a familiar symphony in their cozy suburban home. He pulled on a robe and padded down the hallway, pausing at the slightly ajar door of his 12-year-old son Ryan's room. Peeking inside, Ethan saw Ryan sprawled across his bed, one arm dangling over the side, clutching a book about robotics. His glasses were askew on his freckled nose, and his chestnut hair was a tousled mess. Ethan chuckled quietly. Ryan must have fallen asleep reading again. The boy's insatiable curiosity and passion for building things were sources of endless pride for Ethan. He gently lifted the book from Ryan's grasp, marking the page before setting it on the nightstand. Adjusting the blanket over his son, Ethan whispered, "Time to wake up, buddy." Ryan stirred, blinking sleepily. "Dad?" he mumbled, rubbing his eyes. "Morning, champ. You fell asleep with your nose in a book again," Ethan said, ruffling Ryan's hair affectionately. Ryan sat up, suddenly alert. "Oh no." "Did I finish the chapter?" he asked, scrambling to find the book. Ethan laughed. "Always the overachiever. Don't worry, it's right here. But first, how about some breakfast?" Ryan grinned. "Pancakes?" "Only if you help," Ethan replied, winking. "Deal." Ryan threw off the covers and hopped out of bed, his earlier grogginess forgotten. As they headed downstairs, the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the house. Laura was already in the kitchen, dressed in a cozy sweater and leggings, her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She hummed softly to herself as she arranged fruit on a platter. "Good morning, sleepyheads," she greeted them with a warm smile. "I was beginning to think you'd sleep the day away." "Not when pancakes are on the menu," Ethan quipped, moving to kiss her cheek. Ryan bounded over to the counter, pulling out the mixing bowls. "Mom, can we add chocolate chips this time?" Laura feigned contemplation. I don't know. That might make them too delicious." "Please," Ryan pleaded, flashing his best puppy dog eyes. She laughed. "All right, but only because I can't resist that face." The kitchen soon filled with the sounds of clinking utensils, sizzling batter, and cheerful banter. Ethan flipped pancakes with dramatic flair, earning exaggerated applause from Ryan. They teased each other playfully, the easy rapport of a family deeply connected. As they sat down to eat, Ryan launched into a detailed explanation of his latest project, a remote-controlled car he was rebuilding from scratch. "So, I figured out that the motor wasn't actually broken," he said between bites. "It was just the wiring that was messed up. If we resolder the connections tonight, I think it'll work." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "Sounds like a solid plan. You've really got a knack for this stuff, you know." Ryan beamed. "Thanks, Dad. Maybe someday I'll build a real car." Laura arched an eyebrow. "Just promise me you'll wait until you're old enough to drive it." They all laughed, the moment filled with warmth and light. Ethan felt a swell of contentment. These were the moments he cherished most, the simple, everyday interactions that made life rich and meaningful. As breakfast wound down, Ethan glanced at the clock. "I should get going. Got a stack of paperwork waiting for me." Laura stood up, collecting the plates. "Always the glamorous life of a detective." He shrugged good-naturedly. "Someone's got to keep the city safe." Ryan followed him to the front door. "Don't forget about the car tonight," he reminded, his eyes earnest. Ethan knelt to his son's level, looking him straight in the eye. "I promise, buddy. We'll get it running and maybe even take it for a spin around the block." Awesome, Ryan exclaimed, giving his dad a tight hug. Have a great day at school, Ethan said, returning the embrace. And ace that math test. I will, Ryan assured him. Ethan kissed Laura goodbye, lingering for a moment to enjoy the softness of her lips and the familiar scent of her lavender perfume. Love you, he whispered. Love you more, she replied, her eyes sparkling. As he drove to the station, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling of contentment that enveloped him. Life was good, his family was happy and healthy, and he found fulfillment in his work. Little did he know that this sense of normalcy was about to be shattered in the most unimaginable way. The precinct was a hive of activity when Ethan arrived. Officers bustled about, phones rang incessantly, and the steady hum of conversations filled the air. Ethan made his way to his desk, a cluttered space adorned with family photos and commendations. Morning, Collins. His partner, Detective Sarah Mitchell, greeted him, sipping her coffee. Morning, Mitchell. Anything pressing on the agenda today? He asked, setting his briefcase down. Just the usual. Reports to file, witnesses to interview. The Thompson case is heating up, though. We might finally get a break. Ethan nodded, already scanning through his emails. Good to hear. Maybe we can wrap it up before the weekend. Hours slipped by as Ethan delved into case files and paperwork. He was reviewing surveillance footage from a recent string of burglaries when his desk phone rang. Glancing at the caller ID, he saw it was Laura's cell. Hey, honey, he answered, a smile touching his lips. Missing me already? But instead of her usual cheerful reply, he was met with silence, followed by a shaky breath. Ethan? Laura's voice quavered, barely above a whisper. Instantly alert, he sat up straight. Laura, what's wrong? It's Ryan, he's missing. The words hung in the air, heavy and disorienting. Ethan felt as if the ground had shifted beneath him. What do you mean, missing? He demanded, his voice edged with urgency. I got a call from the school, she explained, her words tumbling out in a rush. They said he didn't return after lunch break. His teacher noticed he wasn't in class and checked the grounds, but they can't find him. Ethan's mind raced. Have they checked with his friends? Maybe he went off campus. Yes, they checked. No one has seen him. I called his phone, but it goes straight to voicemail. A knot formed in his stomach. Stay where you are. I'm coming home. We'll figure this out. Please hurry, Laura pleaded, her voice cracking. Ethan hung up, his hands trembling slightly. He grabbed his coat and turned to Sarah. I have to go. It's Ryan. He's missing. Her eyes widened. What? Do you need help? Not yet. I'll keep you posted, he said tersely, already moving toward the exit. As he sped home, sirens blaring in his mind, 1,000 scenarios played out in his head. Ryan could be with a friend, or perhaps he lost track of time. But deep down, a cold fear gnawed at him. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Ethan burst through the front door to find Laura pacing the living room, her face pale and eyes red-rimmed from tears. I've called everyone, she said desperately. His friends, their parents, no one has seen him. Ethan pulled her into a firm embrace. We'll find him, he assured her, though his own heart hammered with anxiety. He pulled out his phone and began making calls. First, to the school principal, pressing for every detail. Then, to the district superintendent, demanding access to security footage. There's a blind spot near the east gate, the principal admitted reluctantly. The cameras there have been malfunctioning. Ethan clenched his jaw. That's unacceptable. We need to search the area immediately. He contacted the precinct, speaking directly to the chief of police. My son is missing. I need all available resources to find him. Within the hour, officers were canvassing the neighborhood. Patrol cars combed the streets and an Amber Alert was issued. Ethan coordinated efforts from his living room, turning it into a makeshift command center. Any recent reports of suspicious activity? he asked Sarah over the phone. Not in that area, she replied, but we'll expand the search radius. Laura sat on the couch, clutching a photo of Ryan. This isn't happening, she murmured. It can't be real. Ethan knelt beside her, taking her hands. We'll find him, Laura, I promise. She looked at him with tear-filled eyes. You can't promise that. He squeezed her hands tighter. Yes, I can. And I will. As night fell, the lack of progress weighed heavily on them. Leads were scarce, and the initial flurry of activity had yielded no results. An officer approached the door, his expression grave. Detective Collins, we've found something. Ethan's heart leaped into his throat. What is it? He held up a small, familiar object, a keychain with a miniature robot, one that Ethan had given Ryan for his birthday. It was found near the east gate of the school, the officer explained. No other signs of struggle. Ethan examined the keychain, his mind reeling. He never goes anywhere without this. Laura's hand flew to her mouth. Oh God. Ethan took a deep breath, forcing himself to remain composed. Expand the search area. Check traffic cameras, see if any vehicles were in the vicinity around lunchtime. Yes, sir, the officer replied, hurrying off. Ethan turned back to Laura. We're getting closer. This is a good sign. She shook her head. How can this be happening? Who would take our son? Ryan awoke to darkness and the steady, distant sound of dripping water. His head throbbed, and for a moment he couldn't recall where he was. As his eyes adjusted, he realized he was in a dimly lit room with concrete walls, some sort of basement. Panic surged as he tried to move, only to find his wrists and ankles bound with rough rope. A heavy chain looped around his waist, securing him to a metal post bolted to the floor. Hello? He called out, his voice echoing hollowly. There was no response, only the relentless drip, drip, drip of water and the faint hum of what sounded like machinery above. He strained to remember how he got here. He had been walking back to school after lunch, taking his usual shortcut through the park. A black van had pulled up, and before he knew it, a hand clamped over his mouth, and everything went black. Fear threatened to overwhelm him, but he took deep breaths, recalling the mindfulness exercises his mom had taught him to manage anxiety. Stay calm, he whispered to himself. Think. He surveyed his surroundings. The basement was sparsely furnished, an old wooden table, a few crates stacked in the corner, and a single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling, casting long shadows. Ryan tested the ropes binding his wrists. They were tight, but not unbreakable. He shifted his position, trying to reach into his pocket. Miraculously, his captors hadn't searched him thoroughly. He could feel the edge of his cell phone pressing against his thigh. His heart quickened. If he could just get to it? He contorted his body, inching his fingers toward his pocket. It was a slow, arduous process, every movement causing the ropes to chafe against his skin. Finally, his fingertips brushed the edge of the phone. Come on, he urged silently, stretching as far as he could. At last, he managed to grip the phone, carefully sliding it out. The screen illuminated, casting a soft glow. His battery was at 15%. He navigated to the dial pad, his hands shaking. Just as he was about to dial 911, footsteps echoed from above. Panicking, he quickly hid the phone beneath his leg and feigned unconsciousness. A door creaked open, and a beam of light swept across the room. Hey, kid, a gruff voice called. You awake? Ryan remained still, his heart pounding so loudly he was sure it would give him away. The footsteps descended the stairs. He could hear the man's heavy breathing as he approached. Don't pretend with me, the man snarled, nudging Ryan's foot with his boot. Ryan opened his eyes slowly, squinting as if disoriented. Where am I? He asked, his voice small. That's none of your concern, the man replied. He wore a ski mask, only his cold, dark eyes visible. "All you need to know is that your daddy's gonna pay a hefty sum to get you back." "My dad doesn't have much money," Ryan lied, hoping to dissuade them. The man chuckled darkly. "Oh, we know exactly who your father is. Detective Ethan Collins. A real hero, huh?" Ryan's stomach dropped. They had targeted him because of his dad. This was worse than he thought. "Please, just let me go," he pleaded. "Not until we get what we want," the man retorted, turning to ascend the stairs. "Be a good boy, and maybe we'll let you live." As the door slammed shut, Ryan allowed himself a moment of despair. Tears welled in his eyes, but he blinked them away. Crying wouldn't help him now. He retrieved the phone from beneath his leg, determination stealing his nerves. Ryan dialed 911, pressing the phone close to his ear. The line connected, and a calm, steady voice answered. "911, what's your emergency?" "My name is Ryan Collins," he whispered urgently. "I've been kidnapped. I'm in a basement somewhere, but I don't know where." "Okay, Ryan, stay calm. Can you describe anything about your surroundings?" He glanced around, taking in every detail. "It's a concrete room, maybe a basement. There's a dripping pipe, and I can hear machinery like a generator or something. I was taken near Crestwood Park." "That's very helpful. Do you know how many people are holding you?" "I've only seen one man, but I think there might be more. They're wearing masks." "All right, we're tracing your call now. Keep the line open as long as you can." Ryan's heart pounded. "Please, hurry. I don't know when they'll come back." "You're doing great, Ryan. Just stay on the line." Suddenly, he heard footsteps above again. His eyes widened in fear. "They're coming back," he whispered. "Hide the phone if you can. We'll send help as soon as possible." He ended the call and quickly tucked the phone back into his pocket, resuming his earlier position. The door creaked open once more, and a different voice called out. "Time to move, kid." Two men descended the stairs this time, both masked and imposing. "Where are you taking me?" Ryan asked, trying to keep his voice from shaking. "Change of plans," one of them replied curtly. "Your old man's taking too long to cooperate." They unchained him from the post, but kept his hands and feet bound. As they hauled him up the stairs, Ryan's mind raced. He had to leave some kind of clue. As they passed through the main floor, he caught glimpses of his surroundings. A dilapidated warehouse with broken windows and graffiti-covered walls. The air smelled of rust and oil. They led him outside to the back of the building. The night air was crisp, and the sky was dotted with stars. For a brief moment, he considered screaming, but the area seemed deserted. "Get in the van," one of the men ordered, opening the door. Desperate, Ryan stumbled intentionally, dropping to his knees. "Clumsy kid," the other man grumbled, reaching down to yank him up. In that split second, Ryan let his phone slip from his pocket, sliding it under the van. They shoved him into the vehicle, slamming the door shut. As the engine roared to life, Ryan silently prayed that his discarded phone would lead his father to him. Back at the precinct, Ethan was a whirlwind of activity. The 911 call had provided a crucial lead, but time was slipping away. The call was traced to an area near the old industrial district, Sarah informed him, pointing to a map. "It's a maze of abandoned buildings." Ethan studied the map intently. He mentioned a dripping pipe and machinery sounds. Could be the old textile mill. They had generators running for years after closing. "Already dispatching units there," she replied. Ethan's phone buzzed, a message from the tech team. "Sir, we've picked up a signal from Ryan's phone. It's intermittent, but it's near the industrial district." "That's my boy," Ethan murmured, a flicker of hope igniting. They mobilized SWAT units, K-9 teams, and aerial support. As they approached the area, Ethan's emotions swung between hope and dread. He knew the risks of a direct confrontation, but couldn't bear the thought of waiting. "Sir, we have movement near Warehouse 12. An officer reported through the radio. A black van matching the description just left the premises. Ethan's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Do not lose that vehicle. Units pursued the van, sirens wailing. The kidnappers, realizing they were being followed, accelerated wildly, weaving through the deserted streets. Ethan joined the chase, his heart pounding. I need to be there when they stop, he insisted over the radio. Understood, detective, but we advise caution. The van careened onto a main road, heading toward the outskirts of the city. Police units formed a perimeter, preparing to box them in. Roadblock ahead, an officer confirmed. They have nowhere to go. The van swerved erratically, the driver desperate. Finally, it skidded to a halt, crashing into a barrier. Officers surrounded the vehicle, weapons drawn. Step out of the vehicle with your hands up, they commanded. The doors opened slowly, and 2 men emerged, their hands raised. Where's the boy? Ethan shouted, pushing forward. One of the men sneered. He's not here. Ethan's blood ran cold. Search the van. Officers combed through the vehicle but found no sign of Ryan. He's telling the truth, Sarah said grimly. Ryan's not here. Ethan grabbed the man by the collar. Where is my son? The man laughed harshly. You'll never find him. Before Ethan could react, the man reached into his pocket, pulling out a small device. A detonator. Get down, someone screamed. Ethan tackled the man, wrestling for control of the device. A struggle ensued, but officers quickly subdued the kidnapper. Bomb squad, move in, Sarah ordered. They discovered explosives rigged in the van, an apparent last resort. Ethan's mind raced. If Ryan wasn't in the van, where was he? Back at the warehouse, a K-9 unit continued to search the premises. One of the dogs alerted near the back entrance. Sir, we found something. An officer radioed in. Ethan and Sarah returned to the warehouse, hope rekindled. What is it? Ethan asked urgently. The officer held up a cell phone, Ryan's. It was under the van parked here earlier, he explained. Ethan examined the phone, a crack across the screen. Smart kid, he murmured. He left us a trail. There's more, the officer added. Tire tracks lead away from here toward the river. Ethan's heart pounded. They might have a secondary location. They followed the trail to an old dockyard by the river, a maze of shipping containers and cranes. Thermal imaging shows a heat signature in that building, an agent reported, pointing to a decrepit boathouse. Ethan didn't wait. I'm going in, he declared. Protocol dictates we wait for backup, Sarah cautioned. That's my son in there, he replied, his eyes steely. She nodded. Then we're going in together. They approached the boathouse silently, the only sounds the gentle lapping of water and the distant hum of the city. Ethan's senses were heightened, every nerve on edge. Inside, Ryan sat on a chair, his hands and feet bound. A single kidnapper stood guard, his back to the door. Ethan signaled to Sarah. On his count, they burst in. Police! Drop your weapon! The man whirled around, surprised. He reached for his gun, but Ethan fired a warning shot. Don't even think about it, Ethan growled. The kidnapper hesitated, then raised his hands. Officers moved in to apprehend him as Ethan rushed to Ryan. Dad! Ryan cried, relief flooding his face. Ethan quickly untied him, pulling him into a tight embrace. I've got you, buddy. You're safe now. Ryan clung to him. I knew you'd come. Ethan's voice cracked. I'm so proud of you. You were so brave. Sarah approached, a gentle smile on her face. Glad to see you're okay, Ryan. He nodded, wiping tears from his eyes. Thank you. As they escorted the kidnapper out, Ethan and Ryan walked side by side, the weight of the ordeal beginning to lift. Back home, the Collins family began the process of healing. Ryan struggled with nightmares, but with therapy and the unwavering support of his parents, he began to regain his confidence. Ethan took time off work to be with his family. They spent days hiking, playing games, and simply enjoying each other's company. One afternoon, as they worked on the remote-controlled car, Ryan turned to his father. "Dad, I'm sorry I scared you," he said softly. Ethan looked at him, surprised. "You have nothing to apologize for. I should have been more careful." Ethan placed a hand on his shoulder. "What happened was not your fault, and you were incredibly brave. You helped us find you." Ryan smiled faintly. "I just did what you always taught me, to think on my feet." "Well, you did a darn good job," Ethan replied, ruffling his hair. Laura joined them, carrying a tray of lemonade. "How's the project coming along?" "See for yourself," Ryan said, flipping a switch. The car whirred to life, speeding across the driveway. They watched as it navigated obstacles with ease. "Looks like you two finally got it working," Laura remarked, her eyes shining. "Team effort," Ethan said, wrapping an arm around her. They stood together, a united front against whatever challenges lay ahead. Years later, Ryan stood on a stage, accepting his diploma from the police academy. Ethan and Laura watched from the audience, pride radiating from them. As Ryan began his speech, he glanced at his parents. "I stand here today because of the strength and courage my family showed me. My father taught me that bravery isn't the absence of fear, but the triumph over it." Ethan felt a lump in his throat as he listened to his son. That experience, though terrifying, shaped who I am. It ignited a desire to help others, to be a force for good. After the ceremony, they embraced tightly. "You've come a long way," Ethan said, his voice filled with emotion. "Couldn't have done it without you, Dad," Ryan replied. As they walked away, Ethan reflected on how that harrowing ordeal had ultimately strengthened their bond. The call that had once filled him with dread had, in the end, led them to a place of greater understanding and love. Their story was a testament to resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope could be found.